Yeah, I'm very sorry Abbigale could not join us because she's the founder and chief executive of the Loncke Group, and that includes MBW Energy Support Services. And what that does, it advises companies entering Guyana's energy market. She's the chairwoman of Women in Oil and Gas Guyana. She's got a nonprofit called We Lead Caribbean, which partners with ExxonMobil, the Nico Consulting Group. Michelle, you're here, right? Who's the head of that? And the U.S. Embassy in Georgetown in advancing Guyanese women economically and socially. She's our second panelist, but because of, I guess, bandwidth and all that stuff, the technical aspect of it, communication, technology, we could not get her on.
I'd like to express my gratitude to the organizers for putting together this timely event, as I am extremely honored to be able to speak to you all and to sit on this panel. I am especially pleased to be able to represent the views and interests of women who are operating in Guyana's emerging energy sector or interested in careers and business pursuits in this sector. Even established Guyanese businesses have come to realize that there is a steep learning curve that has to be navigated to allow for their participation in this sector at a higher level. The formation of the Women in Oil and Gas Guyana acknowledges this and allows for the facilitation of a pathway to participation for Guyanese businesses that are led by women. And this is what has been accomplished by my firm, MBW Energy Support Services. We are positioned to function in any and all of the segments, be it upstream, midstream, and downstream, as they become operational in the Guyana context. While companies entering the Guyanese market operate in the core segments, they also have to exist within a certain geographical space that has its own determining factors that companies need to navigate, which differs from location to location. I have positioned my enterprises to be able to serve the emerging needs of this industry with a decidedly Guyanese stance. Understanding as I do that efficient navigation of this new environment will be the key to the success of the companies operating in the emerging oil and gas space here. Importantly, however, I have created a model of enterprise that allows me to identify the emerging needs of the sector and pivot to provide those services effectively and efficiently. This model heavily relies on partnership and capacity building with industry experts and the diaspora, while understanding that we cannot do it alone. I think that it is this methodology of operating that has allowed us to navigate the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic so far. And as the industry grows, so too we are set to grow in tandem. As a young female Guyanese entrepreneur who has managed to carve a path within this industry, I am cognizant of the process of navigating this space and to a greater extent the struggles my fellow female and young entrepreneurs face. There are many opportunities that are available currently and that are going to be available to us in the coming years. Apart from working directly in specialized areas within the oil and gas industry, SMEs can participate in the following non-core services, which are food and catering, entertainment, transportation, housing, safety supplies, protective clothing, office equipment, facilities management, human resources, insurance, the legal field, real estate and training, tourism, and more. There is also the Center for Local Business Development to join the oil and gas supply chain. And entrepreneurs benefit from strategic support for local SMEs and learn more about procurement opportunities. The Center for Local Business Development was launched to assist Guyanese companies to better understand and access opportunities, primarily in the oil and gas sector, by improving their overall competitiveness. And the services from the center includes supplier registration portal, oil and gas seminars, business courses, health, safety, security, and environment management program, online computer-based training, smart partnerships, mentorships, forums, events, and trade mission. Now, this, I believe, is of great benefit to women and young entrepreneurs. It is also good to note that you must be registered with the Center for Local Business Development in order for you to participate in the bidding process in Guyana's oil and gas sector. At this point, I would like to say that we have seen a local upsurge in the construction industry, which is making way for improved infrastructure. There is also talks on the increased need for improved communication, be it internet and phone, transportation infrastructure, as these are the cornerstone that will provide functionality to businesses to flourish. I personally do not see any segment that is particularly advantageous for women entrepreneurs. It is a change of this way of thinking that underpins the establishment of the Women in Oil and Gas Guyana, or WIOGGY. As chairwoman of WIOGGY, I have seen members who are involved in this sector, from the oil field as industry professionals to the boardroom as CEOs of enterprises, providing both core sector services and support services as well. We are the lawyers in the industry, the caregivers to families, the transportation and logistics professionals, the entrepreneurs, the health and safety officers, the environmental professionals, and the list goes on. Though we know the upstream segment is for specialized skill set, I personally see the industry as a whole as a growth sector for the involvement of women and youth. And I encourage everyone to seek their place within the economic driver to maximize their opportunities to benefit from it. Women and young entrepreneurs can and we will participate in all the sectors without any distinction. What we have to guard against is any thought of young professionals and girls that they cannot be involved, and we need to work to remove any barriers to their involvement that may exist. Our immediate challenge is the development of experience for the specialized services and employment, as most companies do not want to hire or subcontract to new companies, which makes gaining the relevant experience necessary difficult. However, through WIOGGY, we have created Developer and a few other initiatives to bridge this and other gaps. Developer, under the team preparing today's leaders for tomorrow's business world, seeks to introduce women in Guyana to strong mentor and sponsorship relationships, create structure for development and advancement of their careers through training, mentorships, and internships, as well as to help other new leaders to rise. We have also embarked on engaging in several stakeholder meetings on our local content policies because we believe that it is necessary to ensure balance. We understand that the local companies will not have the experience when compared to foreign companies, as the industry is new to Guyana. However, if a robust local content policy is not enforced, then the local population will never develop. I must at this point also emphasize the need for the inclusion of our diaspora in our local content policy. Your expertise and experiences are needed here in Guyana, and that is why it is important for us to collectively create a roadmap to your inclusion, which is built on trust of the government, trust from the Guyanese living in Guyana, and trust from those who are in the diaspora, and also for a full understanding of how you, the diaspora, see yourself being included in the conversation. So we've heard time and time again that Guyanese companies must learn to adapt. We've also heard the President express that partnership is the key to the early development of local content and capacity building in Guyana. We have to understand our competitors are sophisticated and shrewd. They have years of experience and they know the corners, Mr. Ali stated. In Guyana, we have a history of family-owned businesses and we do not have a history of consortium type of activities. I have said this to the private sector. Local companies need to enter into partnership with each other, Mr. Ali stated. One of the key ways Guyanese can seek to acquire the experience to maneuver on their own in this industry is to seek partnership with industry sellers who can bring their experiences while our companies leverage their local expertise and capabilities. The experience we acquire along the way can only rebound to the benefits of our company. As we examine the opportunities for participation in the sector, we see more and more instances where one company may not have the expertise in-house to provide what is required, especially our smaller enterprises. However, greater appreciation of and involvement in creating sustainable partnership partnerships can allow us to bring to bear our particular strengths while co-opting the skills residents in other companies have through partnership agreements. This helps in that while neither of the two companies may be able to take advantage of the opportunity on their own, the execution of the task becomes eminently possible through the pooling of resources. As alluded to in the president's remarks, this is a culture shift in the way business is done in Guyana, but a shift that has to become necessary as we become competitive in this space. So, moving forward, it is my view that Guyana needs to do the following. Bring some aspect of the oil and gas value chain to land, whether port infrastructure, pipelines, etc. Only when this happens, the downstream value chain will bring more value to Guyanese population. Mandate local content in one form or the other, either via employment, internship programs, contracting or subcontracting on all major contracts secured by multinationals. Lastly, train, train, train. Allocate funding to develop schools and institutions that will provide the training necessary for the population to capitalize on the energy value chain. Now, I am certain that many points I have raised here will generate a vigorous discussion, and I welcome this interaction, which may confirm or change my views on this topic, but both of which I welcome equally. The Women in Oil and Gas Guyana exists to serve the interests I outlined earlier, and my companies are structured with the ability to take cognizance of the reality of the day to effectively provide the requisite services. And in both instances, I am extremely open to sharing and learning as well. So I say thank you for giving me this opportunity to participate, and I wish us all a fruitful and beneficial discussion. Thank you.
The thing about diaspora engagement, there's one thing that bothers me as someone, I left Guyana before independence. And somebody said, Yes, I did. And I was teaching a class here, and this woman said to me, a very recent arrival from Guyana, she said, y'all run away and left me in the mess. You see, and now you won't come back, you see. When I took my grandchildren they're born here. When I took them to Guyana in 2018, the term we kept hearing is comebackies. And there's something pejorative about it in the sense that, yes, we live in all the luxury, we ran away, we're in America, Europe, Canada, wherever we are, and now we want to come back and take over, you see. Is there, Edwin, you can answer this, or any of our resource people in the audience, is there an infrastructure to really deal with the diaspora? Is there an infrastructure? In Senegal, for example, there is a diaspora ministry. They deal directly with the diaspora. It's a one-stop shop, one-stop shop. You go there, if whatever your plans are, and it will facilitate your return, your contribution, your skills, whatever, to Senegal. Is there such a thing in Guyana? Or just people going, okay, I'll go, and then another company goes, and then each one handles on its own. China raided Silicon Valley to get Chinese Americans to go. There's an infrastructure to deal with that, to smooth the way for diaspora engagement in the emerging industries. Israel, how many people in the 1960s and 70s, friends of mine from college who went to Israel to work on a kibbutz to build Israel. So, how does a diaspora person who knows nothing? I have a son, my children were born in the Congo. I have a son who studied urban sustainability. If I took him to Guyana, loves the country, saw lots of areas where he can contribute. He knows nothing about the channels that he has to go through. Can he get that here in New York or wherever we have consulates general? Is there an infrastructure really to welcome the diasporans with all the skills and all the partnering that we hear we should be doing?
I think, as we speak about local content, it's not for government to set a policy on what local content should be and how we should contribute. I think as Guyanese, we should understand what those needs are and go contribute. If we wait for a government policy to tell us how contributions should be made, we will not do anything. The oil curse. The oil curse. We don't need a government policy to tell us how to avoid the oil curse. Look at Senegal, look at the Congo, where Rosalind spent a lot of time. They have the copper curse. As citizens, as entrepreneurs that want to get involved in local content, we know what the resources of Guyana
No, we don't.
are. I think most Guyanese know what those resources are.
No, we don't.
Outside of oil, we know what brought us to where we were or where we are prior to oil. As Guyanese, we need to look at the economy and, as someone said earlier, do not place all of our bets in oil. Look at the rest of the economy and determining where we can contribute. If we wait for government to tell us where to contribute, it would not work. Local content is about understanding what happens locally and how you can take advantage of it as a business person.
Just
Question. Oh,
sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just need to respond to that. In no way am I saying that there shouldn't be individual work, that a company cannot go in. How much smoother would it be if we know where the needs are? You cannot expect second, third generation Guyanese born here or outside of Guyana to know what the needs are. Make it a little bit easier, but if you want your own and be entrepreneurial in that way, in finding where the opportunities are yourself, then certainly. But it would be helpful for those who cannot be that entrepreneurial, who do not know the ropes, who are second-born, third-born generation people. It would be helpful if there were some kind of organized way, as many countries are doing it, in which you can go and say, okay, this is the list of priorities. This is where we can go. This is the ministry that I need to go to. I can contact my own, etc. Okay. You have another question?
Ms. McCalmont, I agree and I disagree.
Okay. Well,
Look,
we're not...
Look, there are, as Mr. Carmula said earlier, local content and the advantages of local content are to be taken now. There are people from other parts of the Caribbean, other parts of the world, for example, Trinidad, going into Guyana, taking advantage of local content that Guyanese cannot provide. As we wait for things to get fully organized, opportunities are being lost. I thought one of the reasons that a group as distinguished as this QC group is holding this discussion is for people with knowledge of what's happening in Guyana to understand the need for now to take action. But if we wait for governments to get organized, governments that have no history, no experience in the oil industry, that organization will take a very long time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just as an informational matter, just to sort of split the difference between Rosalind and the speaker who came before, I think as rightly identified, there is an urgency to be engaged. But I think you've also identified a gap. And I wanted to suggest that there has been some movement. I think a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, there was a massive online diaspora conference, which was relatively well done. There were breakout rooms where people could engage with the government on tourism, on energy, on mining, etc. I note that there is a recent diaspora office that has been set up in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it's run by a young woman named Rosalinda Rasool. And so there have been these efforts along the lines that you've described. So they're there. I think on Tuesday or so it was, I met someone named Joe Yusuf, who is the person at the consulate who's responsible for facilitating investments in Guyana. So there is this infrastructure that is being built, and I wanted to be sure that but I also wanted to kind of amplify the remarks of previous speaker, because I do think sometimes we tend to be passive and not be as aggressive in terms of looking for the opportunities in the space. And one last comment, a response to the young Mr. Van Kooten here, just to say that yes, we are documenting and will disseminate these ideas so that there will be a part of the mix of ideas that are being considered by the stakeholders across the space. So just to note that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. Good to know about that in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The first question, to repeat it, how is ring fencing beneficial to Guyana under the contract? Ring fencing means that, let's say for instance, we have ExxonMobil and its partners in the Stabroek block, right? And that's a very huge block. Compared to, let's say, blocks that are awarded in the Gulf of Mexico, United States, that block is about 1,200 to 1,300 times the size of one of those blocks. So we have a total of 19 discoveries right now, and they're all good. But there's so many places they can go out and do additional work or additional activities that might end up being dry holes, for instance. And those costs can come back under, let's say, at least a one, because there's no ring fencing that says, okay, so you're producing from this particular field, right? You're making revenues from this field. The cost that you charge against those revenues should come from that field. That's just an example of what a ring fence would look like. It says you keep your costs that you're going to recover from within where you're producing, and not going out here and then bringing all these costs in. And at the end of the day, you really have no risk, because you know you're going to get it back from the Guyana government.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Any others? To what extent are ordinary Guyanese involved in shaping policy in terms of health and safety, in terms of local content, all of the things that Guyanese themselves should be benefiting from? Is policy left just up to politicians, or are there private sector Guyanese organizations, groups, bodies like this association? Is there input by ordinary Guyanese into the vision for Guyana, into the policies that will affect Guyanese people first and foremost? If there's an oil spill, for example, what enshrines, local content is said should be enshrined in law. What are the priorities for Guyana that look for local content Guyana? What are the priorities for Guyanese? All of these things, I think we need to be able to speak to as ordinary Guyanese, making your voice heard, making our voices heard in terms of what future would we like to see for our children, ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, coming from the benefit of oil and gas and the other areas that we are developing alongside agriculture and so on. So I think with the time that we have left, if anyone wants to speak to that, or Edwin, do you have a final point that you would like to make about the imperatives for Guyana to ensure that oil and gas, this emerging industry, is transformative and will benefit all Guyanese, 750,000 Guyanese?
Yeah, I think it goes back to recognizing that we're really starting with a clean slate in many ways in Guyana with this oil and gas sector. And it's so clean that although you go and look at the laws of Guyana, there might be an oil law or an environmental law. Those laws are outdated.
Archaic, yes.
They're outdated. They do not really relate to the situation in Guyana. And those have to be updated, and they have to be made robust. Robust in the sense that they are not leaving any loopholes that people can, drive an 18-wheeler through and have no penalties for destroying the environment and no consequences for wasting the resources. And no penalties for actually committing things that are crimes in any other country in the name of doing business and making a buck.
Right.
So I think we have to start there. I mean, we are a little bit behind the eight ball on that one, and we need to catch up really fast. To that extent, and we'll have to see how it goes, I'm aware that there's at least one tender that's out for a legal consulting outfit to come in and help the country redo those laws and regulations. But that would be the starting point. But bringing somebody from the outside to do the laws, that's okay. But still, I think there has to be a lot of participation in Guyana from Guyanese resources in shaping that law, because the law has to reflect Guyana as it is geographically, politically.
Thank you. As Mr. Edwin Callender, thank you so much for your expertise. Thank you. Thank you, audience, for participating. We had a number of questions. We even had a little exchange, which was good to put some life into it. Thank you so much, Queen's College Association, Alumni Association. Thank you for inviting me to moderate this panel. Sorry we couldn't get Abbigale, who is in Guyana. She's somebody we need to hear from, especially at that restaurant in Brooklyn, right, when she gets here.
Thank you. You got a king?
Go fish!
It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.